Welcome to Bad Law, Worst Facts. My name is Michael Takla. Today I got Dan Ambrose on, the Chancellor of Trial Lawyers University. He so correctly fixed that before we got on air. Dan, how are you doing today?
Mike, I'm doing great. It's another lovely day in Vegas. The temperature's getting a little bit more normal, and just getting fired up about all the stuff I got to do today. When we're done with it, I'm fired up about the podcast, but I'm fired up about what I got to do after the podcast. So it's a great
So
day.
off air before we got on, you show me your condo. Man, it's beautiful, and you actually do like boot camps there as well, don't you?
I do. I used to teach this program called Trojan Horse Method, and I taught it for about 7 years. And I taught it over 100 times. It was like a weekend course, and probably over 1,000 people participated in that. And I was trying to, from the time I first saw the civil world, because I used to be a criminal defense lawyer, because Nick Rowley was my roommate at the Trial Lawyers College back in 2005. And then he invited me to come watch him speak at Takla for the first time in like 2012. And when I came out here, like I'd never seen this world before. The world I knew was people, nothing but struggle and, collecting a fee of $1,000, $500, $1,500 in criminal cases. And, like people that traded law for money, I always considered to be like, sellouts. But then I realized, what? This is just a world I needed to be in. And, of course, at the time, I fancied myself a very good trial lawyer. Once I saw the civil world, I was like, I need to get good at this stuff. And so I need to figure out how these people are getting these big verdicts because, I considered it like, Miguel Cabrera, who was he's a great baseball player in Detroit, but he's from Venezuela. And he could be the greatest baseball player in the world. But if he stayed in Venezuela, we'd never heard of him and he would never made any money. So he was a person that was, a talented person, but in the wrong place, to play. And so, once I realized that, if I want to really be something, great as a civil trial lawyer, I got to move to California because there wasn't a whole lot of civil trial lawyer energy in Detroit. You had people like, Jeff Feiger, who was like the badass guy that got the big verdicts. And you got Sam Bernstein, who was the television guy and on every billboard. And, then you had the billboard lawyers, but you didn't really have a community of trial lawyers who were like, working together, like cheering each other on, sharing ideas, at least that I wasn't aware of, and in most places it's not like that, but California, Nevada, it's very collaborative. And I made a lot of progress teaching this Trojan Horse method. And I was trying to teach, the physical skills of presentation. But what I was really trying to figure out was connection because, when I got to sit and watch these great trial lawyers throughout the pandemic and break down their trials and try to figure out how are these guys getting these massive verdicts? What is the common denominator? And believe it or not, every one of those big verdicts had a common denominator. And you know what those three things are, Mike?
What were they?
You need to have a good case, first of all. You can't have a piece of shit case because most people settle their good cases and try their piece of shit cases. And then they wonder why they don't get much of a verdict or, they can't get big verdicts because, they got a $10 million settlement instead of going for the $50 million verdict. And so you need a good case and you need the evidence. And, that obviously involves having coverage, having insurance policy, having,
Sure.
liability. I mean, the basics. But then once you have a good case, then you need to have trial strategy. So when the case has been litigated for 4 years, it takes the trial lawyer that's an expert in strategy, like Brian Panish, expert in strategy, to like figure out which evidence the jury need to see, in which order, what don't they need to see? What do we got to cut? Sean Claggett, great trial strategist. And that's why those guys routinely are hitting 8-figure verdicts because they're great trial strategists. They know how to sequence the evidence, how to structure the opening, what visuals they need. And so they're really good at that. But the third leg that I noticed that the great trial lawyers have, and they do this, they have different skills at doing this. Don't get me wrong, they're not all equally skilled, but they all focus on their connection with the jury. And if you focus on the connection with the jury, then you're going to be better at the connection. Whereas like I never really understood that connection thing until I got to really sit down and study that's the key thing. It's not the facts. It's not the evidence. It's not the law. It's the connection with the jury. Does that jury relate to and connect with that trial lawyer? And more importantly, do they want that trial lawyer to win? Because if that jury, who is the judges, wants you to win, it doesn't matter what the evidence is. You're going to win because, I mean, think about it. It's like you're asking them to do the illogical, which is to place a dollar value on something that they would never buy or sell, which is some aspect of their
Right.
health. And so therefore, you have to get them to, motivated and to buy into your frame of what you think value is. And the only way they're going to buy into that is if they're connected to you and see you as, part of the group as a leader. And so that's what we teach at my boot camps. That's all we teach is connection. And connection is a subtle skill that, and people talk about authenticity. Like Trial Lawyers College, I spent 12 years there. They kept saying, you got to be authentic. You got to be yourself. I'd be like, yeah, but I'm scared shitless every time I stand up in front of a jury. So I really don't know how to be authentic and be myself while I'm scared. Like, oh, you just got to figure it out. I'm like, well, I just can't figure it out because I'm not that smart. Obviously, I've been here 12 years in a row. So at some point, somebody's have to realize that Dan Ambrose is not that smart, needs more guidance. But what I had to fail to realize was that they didn't actually have any methodology. They had a result they want to get to. But that's like saying, I want to be fit, but nobody's giving you an exercise plan. Nobody's saying, hey, you got to change your diet. You got to change your food. You got to take supplements. You need to get proper nutrition. You need proper rest. You need to commit mentally. You need to visualize yourself as a healthy person and not somebody that's overweight and unhealthy. There's more than just wanting the goal. You have to give people the path because it's a journey. And if you don't give people the path, they won't figure it out because as smart as most lawyers are, because everybody says, you heard this before, like 93% of communication is nonverbal. You ever hear that, Mike?
Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
Okay. So if 93% of communication is nonverbal, then why the fuck does every conference just have lectures and give ideas and knowledge? And nobody is working on the skills, getting up and presenting, getting up and being vulnerable. And you should be surprised how nervous lawyers get up in front of each other. That's why most of them don't even want to do a workshop because then they have to expose themselves. They have to look in the mirror with others and say, you know what? I have stuff to work on here. I could be better. I'm not perfect. And instead, they just want to go and do the dry run in front of a jury and then wonder why things don't go as maybe they hope. Now, sometimes they do. And, but I know that the biggest difference between people who are really good and people who are at the very top, guess what the one variable that's different between the people in any profession or sport or skill, chess, violin, is the number of hours, the amount of time they spend in solitary practice, honing their craft when they're alone, when there's no lights, there's no audience. It's just them and whatever methodology that they've developed to teach the skills, whether it's Michael Jordan being in the gym at 4 a.m., shooting up, endless shots from the spot that he missed the night before, or whether, that's what the difference is. And so that's what we teach here is the nonverbals. The facial expression control, like having a warm face when you say good morning to everybody. And I know when somebody talks about your dad or your wife, instead of being like, your wife, tell us more about your wife, Mike. Like that mean woman, your wife. Instead of your wife, tell us a little bit about your wife. Having a warm, loving feeling because people judge that, right? And if you have that sneer on your face unconsciously, people are going to think that you don't like marriage because of the way your face is. I'm not joking around. But if you don't think that's true, you just watch the visceral difference that some female jurors may have when somebody talks negatively about relationships and stuff like that. They do. And if you're not aware of that, you don't know it's happening. And then, maybe you're setting people off the wrong way and you're not even aware of it, right? Or like when you ask a question, to have a good inquisitive face, like you're curious, like what time is it? So if you think I'm curious about you, you're much more likely to engage with me. If I ask you a question like, does that make sense? And my tone is the same. There's no rising inflection. My face is the same. There's no curious in my face. These things all make a difference. Or like training ourselves to, most lawyers, when they stand in front of an audience, they have their two hands down by their sides and they're just bouncing up and down, right? That's what you see all the time on CourtView Network. So you're trying to connect with 15 people at once or 12 people at once. And, when people's hands bounce up and down like this, typically it's when they're upset. Like, Mike, what the fuck is your problem? And they're like, da, 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 right? And if you think about it, you got these two things like, 4 feet from your face bouncing, distracting their eyes from your face. Whereas if you were more thoughtful and more trained, you might train yourself to use one hand and keep it between, yourself and the person you're trying to connect with, and to train yourself to move your hand with the rhythm of your voice. That makes all the difference in the world. or to, as far as eye contact goes, to train yourself to actually make eye contact with somebody before you start talking. And when you're done talking, pause for a moment, disconnect with them, find your next juror you want to connect with and connect with them. It slows you down. It makes people feel like you're intentional, like you chose them and not they just happen to randomly be there. So these are some of the things that people talk about, nonverbals that need to be trained, or training ourselves to speak more slowly, to pause more frequently. So that allows, the mind, the audience to process it. You're respecting their bandwidth, okay? Because most lawyers speak way too quickly because they're processing. We process stuff at a faster rate because most lawyers are smarter than everybody else. It is true. If you had the discipline to go through college and another 3 or 4 years of law school and to continue to study all that crap we got to study to be lawyers, it takes a lot of discipline. You get a lot of knowledge and you're just going to be naturally smarter and you're going to talk faster, but that's going to cause disconnect. So those are just, or like using visuals appropriately. Like if I have this is my visual and I want you to look at it, and I'm showing you something like this RH upside down. But when I look back at you to see if you're looking into my eyes, and now you're no longer looking at my visual. And now I've lost the persuasive value of that visual because nobody's looking at it because you're looking at me because I don't trust that you're going to look where I look. So that's something called glance control. So there's all these different skills of presentation that you have to master if you want to be a world-class presenter, because you got to have more than just the evidence. We know that. How many times have people have great cases and they got shit results? It's because they simply don't have the connection. When somebody tells me about a case that they had good facts and they got a shit result, all I'm like is the jury wasn't connected to you. They weren't with you. And people, oh no, I'm a great connector. I'm like, somebody tells me they're a great connector. I'm like, sure you are. I mean, some people are, don't get me wrong. You have those few people, but they're pretty obvious and they're pretty rare. But anyway, so that's what we teach at boot camps. And they're very small. They're limited to, 8 people, 4 people per group. There's only me and one other instructor who's been teaching with me for the last 2 years. So it's a very defined process. And we videotape every presentation, play it back, and coach, and everybody does the same scripts of voir dire, opening, and cross. So that way there's patterns, because all of learning is pattern recognition and pattern development. And once you see the patterns, like the trained mind can see patterns where the untrained mind only sees randomness. And that's really the value of training. So that's what I do here. And the next one's next week, November 2nd through 4th. And, if anybody ever wants to come, just check it out and doesn't want to actually, because it's a lot of investment. It's 6 weeks of preparation, of Zoom training, of recording yourself and playing it back in front of the group and me critiquing it and giving you feedback and stuff like that. So a lot of people are like, wow, I want to learn skills, but I don't have that kind of time. I'm not sure. Well, if they're just not sure, then they can just come as a juror and sit in for a day or 2 or 3, see the process, see if it's something that relates to them, if it's something that'll change their life, like it's changed a lot of people's. And if so, they can, they can come. And if not, I'm not hurt. I realized it's like my mother told me when I was 9 years old. She said to me, Mike, she said, Dan, you're not everybody's cup of tea. I'm like, and then one of my good friends, he's like, Dan, you're an acquired taste. I'm like, thank you. I think, I'm not sure. It sounds like a backhanded compliment, but that's okay. Not everybody's everybody's cup of tea. So that's what we, do at these, that's kind of an overview of a little bit of what we do at the boot camps. But there's actually videos on my TLU On Demand of some of the boot camps. And actually, I'm just finishing my remodeling here, and I'm putting a couple cameras in here. So I'm gonna start recording it, and I have an editor. So that way I can have better training videos for people that come in the future, because, people are getting much better in this program than they used to be, because we've been doing it for about almost 2 years now. We started in December of 2021. And like the evolution of change and skills is like, to me, it's expiring, because I want everybody to come here when they leave. I want them to be a teacher. Where are you, in Dallas or Houston? Where are you at?
Houston.
But like, if you did this program, if you go back to Houston and start a work group, training group where you're training some of your, 5 or 6 of your friends, and people that work with you. Because if you're on your feet teaching, you're going to be getting so much better. Because as soon as you start focusing your mind outside of yourself instead of internally, then that's when the real growth happens. And if you're the teacher of these skills, then you're up in front of the group constantly, right? You're in front of everybody constantly. And then you're getting those skills out. That's how you learn to be comfortable in front of people. You learn to be a great presenter. You just got to need more time on your feet doing something intentional, not just doing the work. Right. People say, oh, if I try enough cases, I'll get great. No, you won't get great if you try enough cases. That's like saying if you play enough golf, you'll get good. No, you won't. If you try enough cases, every time you're deliberate about what you're doing, and you're intentional, and you're self-critical, and you're evaluating, every direct you do, and you're practicing that cross before you walk into the courtroom. You're practicing that direct before you walk into the courtroom in front of a mock jury. If you're really on your game, recording it, playing it back, getting a coach, getting somebody to get feedback. So when you get into that trial and you're ready to go, every witness, it's showtime. That's what, that's how exponential growth happens. So it doesn't happen so your career doesn't have to be like this. It can be like, boom, boom. That's what I want. I want to biohack the trial lawyer. I want to get to greatness as fast as possible. That's what I did.
As quickly as possible. Absolutely.
Who's got time? We don't got time.
So, how I saw you get on the scene is this case analysis stuff that you were doing during the pandemic. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. When the pandemic came, I was living in downtown LA, and I just moved into this new condo, and new apartment. I was really psyched about it because it was 3 bedrooms, like 2,000 square feet on the 48th floor, had a couple of balconies. I'm like, felt like king of the world. And I had this vision that, that I was going to rent my place out to trial lawyers who were coming from out of town to try cases in downtown LA because it's only a mile from the courthouse. They could use my apartment as a war room. And so I'd be around these great trial lawyers and, see them working on their cases and get all this training. And then none of that happened. And then, March 13th rolled around, and I was supposed to start a conference, a case analysis live seminar with Sean Claggett and a couple other folks. And that got shut down, and we just had a meeting like on March 15th in person, like everybody who's going to be presenting it, because it was like a 2-day, 4-person event. Everybody got a half day. And well, that didn't happen. And then a buddy of mine was over. One of my buddies named Brad Eggenberg, he kept calling me and saying, Ambrose, now is your time to ask yourself, what can I do for my community? How can I serve my community? Because one day this shit's going to come to an end. And when it does, people got to remember who was there for them in their time of darkness. And I was like, Brad, what the hell am I supposed to do? He's like, I don't know. I'm just an idea guy. You got to figure it out. I just told you need to do something. I'm like, well, that's not a lot of help.
I'm just here for the pep talk, huh?
I'm just here for the pep talk. It's like, how you do it? You got to figure that out. But then he would send me these articles from different companies doing stuff to support their community. He even sent me this article that Pornhub was giving free porn in India to help do their share, do their part to make the pandemic less stressful for people. And so this other buddy of mine, Ari Moss, was over, and we were working on structuring your opening statement, some theory stuff. And I had CVN on, and I was playing some video on there and commenting on it, on the presentation of the lawyer. He's like, dude, you should do a play-by-play. And I'm like, he goes, in fact, you should maybe try to get the lawyers on who were, who did the trial and do the play-by-play and have them. And I'm like, that's a great idea. And so the next day, I'd never been on Zoom before. I'd never done a webinar or been on a podcast. And so, or done a podcast or a webinar. And so I just figured out what Zoom was, started an account. The first day, it was March 19th. It wasn't even recorded, the first one. And I replayed Chris Dolan's presentation because Chris Dolan is a great trial lawyer out of San Francisco. He's actually coming to Huntington Beach this year to teach. And last year he taught he did a 3-hour lecture on voir dire, but he did a 1-day workshop, a full day with 8 or 10 people on voir dire. And the people that were in that class were really stoked because, you get a great trial lawyer that's coaching you, mentoring you one-on-one with 8 people for a full day. That's pretty damn great. But anyways, he did the first case analysis because him and I were at this place called the Grand Havana Room in Beverly Hills. This mutual friend of ours named Mauro Fiore was holding court there. And he's like, and I was there to meet some other people. He's like, hey, sit down, have a drink. I'm like, sure. And I started chit-chatting with Chris Dolan. He was telling me about the trial he did and all the stuff he did. And I was just like, wow, that's incredible, in the course of that trial and how much teaching. And then we did our first live case analysis with him, on May 31st, 2019 up in San Francisco. 110 people showed up. And it was pretty amazing to me that, because they come up as an entrepreneur, you come up with ideas and, you never know if the world's going to buy into them or not. And, the fact, because I was only doing these 20-person programs before. So I realized this is a way for me to build my community, meet a lot more people and, and bring a great product that people wanted and so I started doing that. And so I had this, but I taped it for whatever reason, because I used to have this thing called Trial Professors before there's TLU On Demand. And then I just replayed it. And then the next day, Sean Claggett came on. And, the first day there was 50 people watching because I had a little list of folks who'd been to my Trojan Horse program. The next day there was 110 people and then 200. And then one program with, Mitnick and Morgan got up to, almost 3,000 people. and all
Wow.
plaintiffs lawyers, because it's a plaintiffs lawyer only
Yeah.
platform. So it was pretty cool. And so then, we started off by just playing CVN videos and breaking them down. So it was like Panish in Paris had this $50 million verdict. And it was, we did every aspect of the trial: opening, voir dire, cross. Actually, we did do voir dire because it wasn't recorded, but the crosses, the
Right.
closing arguments, the direct examination, then, all their thinking was spent 2 or 3 hours on every aspect of it. And, I got the, really blessed to be in that position. Because, when I go to conferences, oftentimes people approach me and they're like, "Hey, I really want to thank you for what you did during the pandemic. I learned so much and you brought community." And of course, I'm always grateful that people are grateful. But at the same time, I was thinking, you know what? I appreciate that. But the truth is, I did it for selfish reasons, right? I did it because I wanted to learn. I was student zero. I was the guy that, I want to learn what to do here. This isn't just to get knowledge. This is to teach me, getting all these people to mentor me and mentor the world. And, I really had I realized how fortunate I was to be maybe in the right place at the right time with the right idea, with the right people around me, whatever you want to call it. But, to get all this trial strategy knowledge and theory from so many great, and continue, after this podcast at, 10:30, I'm doing a webinar with Kimball Jones, who's just got a $2.3 million verdict on a 50,000. He offered to settle a case for 50,000. Allstate told him to pound sand. And then he just drove a $2.3 million verdict down their throats. I mean, that's pretty sweet. And collected it. That's pretty sweet,
Yeah.
though, I mean, like that's pretty dope.
Also, he's probably pretty mad right now.
Right. No, but it's over and over. These like insurance companies, just watch them devalue things. Like my buddy that teaches with me, his name's Giorgio. Him and his mom. Giorgio never had a trial before. People are like, well, how can he teach trial skills if he's never had a trial? I'm like, we're not teaching trial skills. We're teaching connection and presentation. And you could teach that because it's a whole different skill. And but he did his first jury trial with his mom. He did it by Zoom. And his mom hadn't had a trial in like 13 years and maybe only had 4 or 5 trials in her life. So it wasn't like she was, Randy McGinn and, some world, seasoned trial lawyer, but she did my boot camp twice. She studied, she went to Roger Dodd's class. She, they hired, consultants to help them. They hired Sean Claggett out here in Vegas and because they had to do the trial via Zoom too. Right. And so that was a whole new thing. I'm like, Zoom, how's everything we've been working on going to help in Zoom? He's like, we got to do this. He was always calm of mind, and we just got to do this. And they ended up, it was an arm burn case from an arc flash. And they ended up getting, and the guy only missed 3 months of work, and they waived his specials. They waived $500,000 in past meds, but they ended up getting a $20.5 million verdict on his behalf. And then to add a little cherry on the top, they had a loss of consortium claim for the wife, and they got $5 million for that. So they got $25.5 million verdict on his first trial. But
that's
he
a good
trained
first trial.
That was
not my first trial.
No, it wasn't my first trial was a misdemeanor conviction on a felony conviction. I had no idea what was going on because nobody really was going to these criminal defense. Nobody really teaches. I mean, anyways. So so that's how the case analysis got started, and I got to, and then after I ran out of videos, then I started just using. They would just use the PowerPoint, kind of break down the voir dires, show clips of cross. It just really it's usually 2 to 3 hours. And it's really like what I call it the turning points of trial. Like, what did you do in this trial that you thought was really good that led to this verdict? Or what did you mess up that, in hindsight, if you had to do it again, you'd do it a little differently. So that's kind of what the case analysis platform. And, there's I think today's webinar will be like the 326th webinar, and what's cool. And then plus every live conference, Vegas, 2021, 2022 was 8 tracks. All 8 tracks were recorded and are on TLU on demand. At the Paris Trial College, I did 2 years in a row, and last year was 4 tracks. All those are recorded and on demand. The Panish Trial College with Mitnick and Dodd is on TLU on demand. And so, I collect the pleadings, transcripts, and PowerPoints. And this really great guy named Ray Asher takes notes on all the webinars. So there's this digital library of trial strategy and knowledge at our fingertips, which is the coolest thing because there's an app on for your phone. If I could find it on here, let me just find it because it's pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of it because so there's an app for your phone. So everything has ever been done is on your phone. And,
Okay, that's pretty cool.
we just finished New York City. So there was 4 tracks at New York City. So all 4 tracks of those are recorded. And now we got, these
Yeah.
great East Coast lawyers like Ben Rabinowitz are, part of, the teaching now. And he taught there and he's going to come out to Huntington Beach in Vegas. So it's just, like this different ideas from around the country.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I went to the TLU conference in Vegas, and going into it, I knew about Trial Lawyers University. I'd seen some of your case analysis. I really liked it. I was like, it's gonna be like any other CLE, like local ones here in whatever state you're in. And I was like, we'll see how it goes. When I went there, I was really impressed. I mean, at one point, I think Jason Icken, he put on a presentation where he brought people from that were, I guess, were just gambling or something, and they brought them in as jurors, and he did a live jury selection and a vote iron, and it was like, whoa, this is talk about hands on and showing you what to do. And there were, there's every single speaker that I went to, I was actually opening up, taking notes, getting as much information as possible. And personally, I'm not really that type of person. Usually I'm like, oh, I know this, or okay, I'll wait till they tell me something new. But this time it was just, I mean, it really was filled with so much good knowledge. And I didn't even do any breakouts, which I think this year I'm going to have to.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And, I designed the program to be so people will be in smaller groups. That's why I have 8 tracks so that, some of the presenters have given me some pushback on it. Like, oh, it's too much separation. The groups are too small. I'm like, if you really feel that way, maybe TLU is not the right place for you, because my focus is on the participants, people who travel, who haven't made it to the big time, or they have, but they still want to get better. That's who my focus is on. And by having the 8 tracks, like in Vegas this year, we'll have 8 tracks, lecture tracks, and 21 workshop tracks. And a workshop is at least a half a day long, so it's 3 hours. And it's a small group, anywhere between 5 and 10 people. And the instructor has to have 2 Zoom meetups with their class ahead of time. People have to sign up and register ahead of time. And go over. So in the Zoom meetups, are going to go over what they're going to teach. People can share what they want to get out of it, and people can meet each other. So when people show up in Vegas, it's not, or Huntington Beach, it's not a complete group of strangers. There's at least 8 people that have had some familiarity with, and if you have that first meeting on a Zoom, then you see that person, you feel some level of connection, some level of comfort. So
Right.
Because my goal is to build a community too, and doing these breakout rooms really does that. But having the 21 choices of breakout rooms and the 8 lecture tracks, really, the result is people are where they really want to be. Because if you're a speaker, you don't want to look out in the audience and see everybody on their laptops sending emails or doing whatever the hell they're doing except listening. No, you don't. Because it's like looking at jurors who are not looking at you and not paying attention to you. It's disheartening and it's not inspiring. You want to look at an audience that's engaged and, deeply interested in what you're talking about, because it empowers you. And then you're doing a better presentation, because, speaking to a group of lawyers is different than being a trial lawyer, being a teacher, and it's a different skill. And some people are extremely good at it, like the Joe Fries and Satch Alvarez and Sean Claggis are great teachers, as well as being, great trial lawyers. And, and that's critical to be a great teacher. But I really focus on the participants, and because I've been, I want to learn too. And even though I don't go to the classes because I have to run around and, be the, the conductor of the orchestra, but still, I got to make sure that everything runs on time too, that, people take a break every hour for 15 minutes. Because some of these lawyers are like, oh, I don't want to take a break, or ask the class, they don't want to take a break. I'm like, time out. This is not a democracy. This is going to be a little, because like if everybody doesn't, people,
I'm the chancellor.
well, people got to take a break because people need downtime. They need white space. They got to return a text, or they got to use the bathroom, but they won't just get up and walk out. And then, and some of these instructors are like, do you all want to take a break or do you want to push through? Everybody's like, oh, we'll just push through. I'm like, of course they're going to say that. Doesn't matter how bad they got to pee. They're not going to be rude. So it's like, just, follow the program. Let's all take a break together. Let's get some fresh air. And then that way everybody gets a chance to get out, because like I'm really conscientious about how we design it, because the exhibit hall is pretty large. But if you remember the exhibit hall, there was only exhibitors like around the perimeter, except for the lounges in the middle. So that way you could see across the exhibit hall. I don't really like those conferences where they snake you through and you walk through and it feels like a meat market and people are trying to grab you and you don't want to pay attention to them. You put your earbuds in, pretend like you don't see anybody because, it's rude. And we know we need the vendors. The vendors to this community are very important. Sometimes if you don't have money, you need money. You need visuals. You need, those texting services that connect you with your, clients. You need the case management services like Smart Advocate or Gladiate that, to help you organize your files. You need all this stuff. And and you need the best providers. You need people who are going to follow through on what they say you're going to do. Because, if people are vendors here and they don't follow through, somebody tells me, hey, this person did not treat me well. It's like, they're never coming back to be an exhibitor in my group, because all we got is trust, and trust breaks down anywhere, it messes up everything. So, so Vegas this year is going to be super dope, but it's even might be doper? Huntington Beach, TLU Beach, because this is the third time we're doing Huntington Beach. And the first year we had 250, the second year we had 550, but this year we got Keith Mitnick coming. We got Nick Rowley coming. We got Brian Panish, Sean Clay. We got Joe Freeds. We got the greatest of the great trial lawyers coming. Yeah. And I am really stoked about it. And we buy out the entire hotel. It's on the ocean, the Paseo. It's only 220 rooms. Every room has a balcony and an ocean view. There's a mall that's connected to it that has great restaurants, so you never have to get into a car. If you don't want, the beach is right across. The beach is right there. All the parties are outside on the ocean. Breakfast every morning, and the food's fantastic, by the way, which is critical. Because after I did my first Vegas event in 2021, Joe Freed calls me up. He's like, Dan. Actually, I saw him at the Crisp event because it was a week after. It's like, Dan, you want my honest feedback? I'm like, no, Joe, lie to me. Tell me how good it was. It's like, overall it was good, but you got to have good food. Because like that first year, all I had was like pastries, like, a continental breakfast. And I didn't have lunch, and people got lunch because this shit is really expensive at a hotel. Like breakfast is like $75 a person, and lunch is like $90 a person. So you times that by 1,200 people, you're talking $85,000 for breakfast. $120,000 lunch. I mean, like over a day. You know what I mean? It's like it's a lot. It's a lot of investment. But once I realized I wasn't buying food, I was buying community. I was paying for community, because a chance for people to sit down and break bread together in the morning for an hour and a half at lunch, really build connections. And, at my conferences too, I always ask people to write a personal bio, sharing their story just in a paragraph of who they are. Like, for example, I'm the youngest of 8 kids. I went to all boys Catholic schools my whole life until I went to the University of Michigan. I went to night school at Detroit College of Law. My dad, my uncle, and 2 of my brothers and my sister were all lawyers. So you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, so anybody comes that has lawyers in their family, anybody's from a large family, anybody that went to night school, anybody that was, so those people all have a connection with me. Oh, and then I also put, I took the California bar 4 times, which means I failed at 3, right? And so anybody's failed the bar exam. That's another life experience. Or, I was a house painter from the age of 12 to age 32. So anybody that's done hard labor knows it can appreciate the fact that we just get to sit and talk and think and, whatever, or do a podcast or webinars or put on conferences to make a living instead of having to, sling paint or, haul roofing shingles or, move concrete, like, all the hard labor jobs. It's like most people have to work, very hard labor, very hard to make a comfortable living. And we're so blessed, most of us as lawyers, to be able to, make a very good living and be able to, and not have a real cap on what we can do too. I mean, and get to do different shit every day. Imagine if you had to do the same thing every day. Like, I would lose my mind. I'd be so bored.
Oh, yeah, I would probably lose my mind too.
Like working on an assembly line, twisting that same bolt every day, or, I mean, it wouldn't be for me. Let's put it that way. So, I'm psyched, but I'm psyched about our and out in Huntington Beach too. We have a theme party every night. So we're going to have, last year we had like a disco party, but this year I'm going to do an 80s party because the 80s ruled, the 80s, and we always have a live band karaoke on one of the nights, usually on Saturday. Last year we also did a jungle party and a Rastafarian party. So I'm still working on my theme parties for this year. I think I might do a Ken and Barbie party, or Barbie and Ken party. So, I like to come up with fun ideas too. Cause really half the people or more get dressed up, which makes it really fun. You know what I mean? Cause it's like Halloween every night. I might just have a Halloween party, Halloween in June. You never know. But you know, and I mean, and like, and it starts off on Tuesday night too, because I have like, I know I rented out the presidential suite for the entire time because I like, it's nice to have a place to hang out and like holds like, it's like holds, you know what I mean? Then it's more comfortable than no, I really don't like hanging out at bars too much because the only people I want to hang out with the people I'm with. When I'm at the bar, I got to deal with 1,000, all the crowds waiting in line for a drink. You know, sometimes they're offended if you light up a joint in a bar, but you can do that on the you can do that on the balcony. So it's more comfortable. So it's good, and then everybody gets a chance to hang out who gets there early because on Wednesdays. So my conference schedule is, Tuesday is always I call it the pregame. Whoever's there early hangs out, has cocktails, get some dinner, just kind of meet up, start to make friends in these smaller circles. The next day, on Wednesday, is just workshops. So in Huntington Beach, there'll be 7 workshops in the morning, 7 in the afternoon. So maybe like 100 people get there early because they're doing the workshops. But then if you don't want to do a workshop, then also like on Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon, guess what else we're going to do, Mike?
What?
Pool party. Come on, man. June in Huntington Beach, we're going to have a pool party. That way people get gas. If you're done, if you did the morning class, you want to hang out and, have some fun, it's great. Like, because it's so fun. That's where you really make new friends. You're just chilling out, relaxing. But in Vegas, Sean Claggett and Sykes are hosting a golf outing because they did their first one in 2022. So if people want to come in early, and it's at Caesar's Palace, which I'm really stoked about this year instead of the Mandalay.
It's really cool.
Caesar's just been remodeled, and we've got a great deal on the rooms. There's only like $210 a night for the rooms. So, it's going to be, but, it's so funny because like the room block's pretty big. It's like 500 rooms, but people are like, oh, the room block's huge. And then like 2 months before it's like sold out, and then people get all upset. I'm like, and they're paying $400 or $500 a night. I'm like, hey, I can only get a room block so big because, if some reason people decide not to come, I'm on the hook for it. But, and like the one in Huntington Beach, that we bought out the whole hotel, but it's only 220 rooms. And, there's only maybe 145 rooms left or so. And, people wait, speakers wait to the last minute and they don't have a room and they get all mad at me. I'm like, I told you to register. I told you to get a room. It's like, it's not my fault that, you delayed. And I only could pull so many strings because I can't make rooms appear. I can't kick Mike Takla out of his room because, some big dog needs a room. I'm like, everybody's equal in the world. You know what I mean? I mean, for the most, it's like, I try to help, but it's like, I'm only one guy. But anyway, so we got some great conferences coming up in 2024. And guess what else we got, Mike? Super dope t-shirts, new color. Look at the back.
And I was going to say, I actually really like your t-shirt. It's good color. Yeah, it looks great.
You know what? You shoot me an email, buddy. I'm going to get you your own TLU t-shirt to be sporting wearing around.
I appreciate that. I'll shoot you one right.
Wearing it around for, so you never forget which dates you need to be here. No, I just talked to a buddy of mine, Justin Morales out of Lake Charles, Louisiana. He's just got a great verdict yesterday for like $3.2 million on when people, with no property damage. That's always impressive, right? When they show pictures and there's absolutely zero damage. Because like this guy, Monty Tynes, who did a case analysis webinar on Wednesday, zero property damage down in, the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, which is not, let's just say there's a guy that likes to wear a red hat around a lot with white lettering, who's very popular down there. So sometimes those places are not the most friendly for plaintiffs, but, he was pretty stoked with his verdict. So my buddy, Justin, just gave me a call to Blue because he used to do Trojan Horse. And he's never seen cases. I'm like, I thought he was hitting me up because obviously people get verdicts, they hit me up. It's like, like when it's Super Bowl, like I'm going to Disneyland. So if they get a verdict, like I'm going to go to TLU and tell the world about it. That's why I thought he was hitting me up. And but no, he was just hitting me up because he wanted to talk about it. But I'm like, he's like, I'll do a short webinar for you. I'm like, no, but they're not that short. Well, unless you consider 2 to 3 hours short. But and then I'm going to do something new this year too. So for folks who just recently got verdicts. So I'm going to do this one segment for a day or two in Huntington Beach. I'm going to start there. It's called How I Got My Verdict. So like I got the idea from Joe Freed down at the trucking conference because he had 3 younger lawyers who recently got, great verdicts. And he had each one of them talk about their verdict for like 20 minutes and kind of interviewed them and, figured it out, fleshed out the teaching points. And I thought that was a really good idea because, if you're new to speaking, it's it's a lot different than trying a case. It can be really stressful too, because
Oh yeah.
it's just a different environment. And this way, if people start with a little smaller stage and, maybe 20 minutes with the guidance of somebody that's really experienced, I think it helps a lot because, I just started recently speaking at other conferences, like spoke at Colorado trial lawyers this year and Oregon trial lawyers. And, I wasn't that thrilled with my presentation in Colorado because I kind of focused too much on the content, worried about the content and not about the connection. But then as I got relaxed and I realized, you know what? I know this stuff. I've been teaching this stuff for years. I know what's important to share. I trust myself is going to come out. And I just got to work on, being with the group and connecting with that audience and relaxing and not being self-critical. And, I really feel like my presentation, because then I spoke again down in the Bahamas recently for the Southern trial lawyers. And I was really happy. My buddy Sagi, he's very critical. He's like, that's one of the better presentations I've seen you give. I'm like, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. I've been working on it. I was trying to bring my A game because he was the president. So he invited me. I'm like, I'm trying to bring my A game for you. So, but he's coming too. Sagi's a great lawyer out of Miami. He's coming to Huntington Beach and Vegas. He recently got a settlement for just under, it's confidential, but he can say it was just under $200 million. A settlement for one plaintiff. That's pretty amazing. I got to have an interview with him on that one because people are like, oh,
Yeah, you need to do that ASAP.
A
so I can
settlement?
listen to it.
Imagine that settlement.
That's insane. For the viewers, what we should be getting from it, and really, and I mean, because when I went up there, I call it networking on steroids, because every single person there is 100% in on wanting to create either their next verdict, create a name themselves, or has a name for themselves. So you meet so many people, you get to really talk about either your cases or what you're doing and what you're doing different. And I talked to different people just from, because I was, thinking about starting my own law firm at the time, from how do I start my own law firm to how am I going to cross this defense expert on one case. I mean, it was range and it was really, really helpful. The networking was great, fantastic. And you do put on some pretty good parties, I'll tell you that. And then the actual stuff that you get, right? The seeing all of the lectures, fantastic. So, I mean, hats off to you for creating such a great product. I mean, it's fantastic.
No, I appreciate that. And if anybody doesn't have TLU on demand and they want to try it out, if they email me, dan@triallawyeruniversity.com, I will give them a complimentary 1-month subscription to try it out and see if they like it. And if they do, they can subscribe. And if they don't, I won't even know. So it'll be no harm, no foul. But that way they can see some of the stuff they would maybe, are interested in from like some of the great trialers like Mitnick, Dodd, Randy McGinn's got stuff up there, Rowley and get a couple good ideas, hopefully, for their cases. Because this one guy that, sometimes you don't realize the benefit of some things, but this one fella calls me up out of the blue, and he's older guy. He's probably in his 70s. And he's like, no, I just want to thank you so much. And I was like, for what? And he's like,
who are you?
Well, I know the guy because he'd actually hired me to come down and do some coaching for him. But after about a day and a half, he's like, I'm done. I'm tired. This is too hard. I'm not interested. And I'm like, really? And I felt bad, because like, if you're paid to do something, you really want to have an impact. And so I said, well, let me give you, I said, you ever want to come to my programs? You're always got a complimentary ticket. You're always welcome. Just come hang out and see things. And he's like, all right, I'm getting it. But then he calls me up and he's like, I just got a $1.5 million verdict on like a $10,000 offer in federal court. And I'm like, great. I'm like, well, what do I have to do with it? He's like, well, I was watching different videos of presenters of cases similar to mine because I was going to ask for $200,000. And so what I realized, I was way undervaluing my case and I wasn't explaining my client's damages correctly. And so by watching these videos, it motivated me to revalue my case and how to articulate the damages. And I just did what I saw on there and it worked. I'm like, that is you know what I mean? Like, to me, that's the greatest news ever because it got to have this great impact on somebody's life. And I didn't even know it. You know what I mean? It didn't take it. Not like it was some sacrifice on my part. I already did you know what I mean? I did the work of putting this stuff together. So and then his client, a client that gets a just verdict instead of a kick in the ass or a punch in the nose, they have a much better life and a much better feeling about the justice system. So, those little stories are inspiring. for me.
And we don't have to limit it to just the big attorneys that are true and tried and been doing it for a while. I feel like anyone can do it as long as you put in the work and reach out to people like you. Go through your university, and you learn so much, and you just implement it. And I will say this. I think I told you yesterday that I was helping a friend of mine with his opening
Oh yeah.
statement. Yeah, and so that's the stuff that you need to be doing as an attorney, just working on it. And I even stood up, and I'll tell you, I can speak to a room of 100 people very comfortable, but if I speak to 5 lawyers in practice, not so comfortable. And so, even with my friend, I was like, "Hey, man, just calm down. I know that I'm being critical of you, and that's what I need to be doing, but you need to feel comfortable at any point. And the only way you do that is through practice." So he actually just texted me. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm practicing in the room by myself. People think I'm crazy." I'm like, "It's fine. Just keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep practicing."
You know what? It's all about the practice. It's all about, constantly getting better. And, and I'm excited too, because I'm supposed to start a trial in about a week. It's just a assault and battery case. It's nothing major, but it's good reps. But I'm excited too, because like the journey that, we're all on the same journey together. Because like I want to get the big verdicts. I want the 7-figure, 8-figure verdicts. And I feel like I'm destined for it, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just, just have to go down in history as a great organizer of parties for lawyers and education for lawyers. Maybe. I don't think so, but maybe that's fine. But I'm going to find out. We never really know what our destinies are.
Honestly,
Because none of
Tyler
them are set.
University. Yeah, go ahead.
None of our, whatever we're doing, there's nothing we can't learn. There's no skill we can't learn if we desire it and, are willing, because as I truly believe that most people are willing to do the work. I see them at the conferences, right? So they are invested in getting better. But most people don't know what work to do. Like if you think that going out in the middle of nowhere and singing songs and, painting pictures and, doing psychotherapy is going to make you a great trial lawyer, I don't see it happening. It might make you a better person, might help you deal with some issues you had in your life. But as far as the hardcore skills of trial lawyering, it's like, or sitting there listening to theory, you're going to get more knowledge, but you're not going to get any skills. And, it's like being, Tom Brady. Tom Brady didn't become Tom Brady by studying game films and studying offensive plays. He did that. That was an intellectual part, but he also got out there. He did the physical training skills, the running the stairs, the weight room, building his body, the nutrition. But he also took snaps under pressure, in pads with these monster linemen running at him so that he could build the unconscious skills. Because performance has 3 components. It has our conscious mind. For Tom Brady, that's learning the plays, right? But for us, it's writing our opening statement. It's writing out our cross-examination. It's deciding what visuals we're going to use. Deciding what questions we're asking. These are the conscious skills that we're developing. But also, there's the unconscious. Those are the knowledge. Then there's the unconscious, which is our skills. And like, you ever try to play golf? You ever play golf? You ever take a golf lesson?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. And so, so to learn the skill, you got to get a coach, right? And that coach has to teach you the fundamentals. You got to learn how to hold the club. If you don't hold the club right, you're never going to have a good, swing. And then you got to learn how to stand. And then you got to learn how to swing, twisting your torso instead of just your shoulders and arms, which is totally unnatural. And then you got to, the coach will record you doing it and play it back and show you and create little drills for you to learn the skills in little tiny pieces and just do like a partial swing. And because that's all we can do is learn these little skills, one little piece at a time, and then build upon that. Well, it's the same thing with being a trial lawyer. You got the intellectual part, but you got to practice the skills. You got to practice the eye contact, the facial expression control, the hand movement, the voice control, the glance control, and really memorize what you want to say because the words matter, but look like you're not trying to do any of it. And that's the unconscious processing. That comes from training. And then the third component is our self-image, right? And our self-image is a combination of our knowledge, when we feel really like we know our materials, and our skills, like we're ready to go. Like, like somebody said to me, some people say, if I came to you and I said, Dan, help me get ready for my trial. I need to want to get ready the skills part of it. What should I do? I said, well, first thing you should do is do my 3-day boot camp, because you learn the fundamental skills. And then after that, you want to draft your opening, draft your voir dire. Then let's get a focus group together, get up and do it for 3 hours. And on top of that, I would also suggest doing the direct and cross of your client, because nobody's more inclined than the plaintiff in a personal injury case. So they get comfortable sharing their emotional state in front of people, being attacked or cross-examined, so they don't fight back, because that's a natural instinct, right? So do that for 3 hours, record it, play it back, coach them, do it again the next day with the refinements, right? Because doing the same patterns, the same skills. Then one more time, do it the next day. Now they're ready, because now they're going to deliver, a voir dire where they get connected in an opening that embeds the story, and be confident their client's going to deliver. Maybe even put their client up earlier in the story than they would have, because they don't have to worry about, I got to build my whole story and win the case before my client gets on and potentially tanking my case, which is what a lot of people think, right? Like, I can't trust my client.
Everybody's scared of the client.
Right. Everybody's scared. Like, the client gets on stand. It's like, nail biter time. Please survive. You ever think, please add $5 million to this verdict, Mr. Client, by your great testimony, and people love you because you're so authentic and relaxed, and you make the proper amount of connection with the jury. You don't look at them weird, but just glance. You know what I mean? You make those minor connections. Training, and because that is what's going to get people like my buddies Mohammed and Ray. They had this electrocution case up there in San Jose, somewhere like that, up in Central California. And they worked their asses off it. They hired everybody. They hired Dorothy Clay Sims for the defense experts. They hired Cliff Atkinson to help them with their visual story. They hired Sean Claggett to consult with them. I mean, I did like days of focus groups with them, but they went and did this electrocution case themselves. They were going to bring this bigger time lawyer in. And in fact, they did. And then after about a week, they decided, you know what, we're going to try our own case, because the case got mistried. And they decided to try their own case. And they went and got a $51 million verdict, but because they prepared and they believed. That's what you were saying. Like, we can all do this. We can all try our own fucking cases. We don't have to, like, every time we get a big, freak out, right? Especially you got years to prepare. If you want to be the trial lawyer, you can be the trial lawyer. Everything's out there. I always say this is the greatest time to be a trial lawyer, because the only thing that's preventing somebody from being great is themselves. Is that you choose not to do the work. Fair enough. You choose, I choose to have a balanced life instead of instead of being great. That's a choice. Totally respect it, because you can't, there's this book by Tim Grover. You ever hear this guy, Tim Grover? He wrote the book, Relentless. He was like Michael Jordan and trainer. The title is Relentless, From Good to Great to Unstoppable. And he's a cleaner there's like a closer, a cleaner, and the cleaner was the highest level. He's like, you can't be a cleaner at everything. You can't be a cleaner parent and a cleaner at your profession. There's only so many hours in the day. Sacrifices have to be made. And, the people that, it's not really a sacrifice, it's an investment. It's like people are like, oh, I can't come to this program because, my wife will get mad. I'm like, your wife should encourage you to come, because you're going to come be a lawyer, make more money, and take better care of your family. I mean, because people that have bigger verdicts, Mike, people that get bigger verdicts, what happens? Their kids go to better schools, they drive nicer cars, they stay in nicer hotels, and they get more big cases. So, I mean, it's like a virtuous circle. It's crazy how it happens for people, but we can all do it. I can do it. I'm in the process. We'll check in, I'll come back in a year and be like, Dan, how's that trial lawyering career of yours coming along? Mike, let me tell you, it's been great, or you know what? It's gotten sidetracked, but we'll see. It's a journey, right?
I'll tell you what, I'll check in with you at the next conference.
Dude, are you coming to Huntington Beach?
Time.
Like, Huntington Beach is like, look, if you look at the website, like TLUbeach.com, like the greatest trial lawyers, and come up with new ideas too. Cause like my buddy, Dr. Miranda, who's like a life care planner, such like brain injury specialist, but he's going to do a small class, just like for 8 people on the medical side of your brain injury case. Cause he has all this new stuff he's doing for help people identify, but just help people, 8 people work on their brain injury case, building that brain injury case so that it has, so you have the right experts, you're putting it together right. And, from a medical perspective, those things like that are just going to be like different, you know what I mean? Just come up with different ideas to, to learn, to learn and so I love trying to figure out like new ways of what people want and what they're going to really find helpful for them on their journey to becoming a trial lawyer. Because, it's really what it's about, is helping people on that journey.
But Dan, I really appreciate you coming on today. It was really good information. For the viewers, man, first just Google TLU University, and then obviously go to the website.
Trial Lawyers University.
Yeah, Trial Lawyers University. I'll tell you this much: I just Googled TLU University; it pops up every time. But Trial Lawyers University, check it out. Check out the information. Definitely, if you can, make the conferences, even do some of these workshops. I went there personally, and it's already really helped me in my practice already. And if you will learn a lot, you will network a lot, and I mean, really, man, hats off to you for really building a community. It's been really impressive.
Well, thanks a lot. I'm grateful for getting to be, in the position at it and be able to hopefully continue to bring people together and help them get better. Improve the state of justice in America. Because like when people speak at my conference, they're like, "What do you want me to speak on? What topics do you cover?" I'm like, it'd be like, Mike, imagine that on July 1st, 2024, you die. A semi crosses the center line and you're gone. And this is your last chance to share whatever it is that you believe that you've learned about being a trial lawyer. That if you don't, the world will be a more unjust place if you pass without sharing this knowledge. That's what I want you to teach about.
Now that's a pep talk. Goddamn.
Well, make it meaningful.
Right.
Change people's lives. That's what you want to do. Give them something that they remember. They're like, wow, I never thought about that before like that. Like Joe Freed, like watch him speak. He's always got such brilliant ideas. He's talking about people get attached to these titles like, PTSD. Because the expert won't give him PTSD, but like you're saying now, the guy can't sleep. When he drives, he's scared all the time. He sweats at night. His heart rate's up, and but it's not PTSD. Okay, so he just has these things. It's like, who cares? It's like it's the symptom. Those are what's important, not the general conclusion of a diagnosis. But those kind of nuggets, like thinking about things differently. We get too attached to stuff sometimes. But anyways,
absolutely.
All right, Mike.
Right.
Thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
Absolutely.
I look forward to seeing you at this dojo in person one day soon. So that way, when you're coaching people out there in Houston, you're helping them get those 7-figure and 8-figure verdicts. And like, man, Mike Takla is my sensei. That's what we need to hear. But people are like, he's only 33. I'm like, I can't help it. He's my sensei. The day's coming, Takla. All right. Keep up the good work.
All right. Take care.